Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I'm going to share with you this setup that I did using Sverchok Add-On inside Blender, and this is kind of a setup that's kind of uh, you work with objects and then materials and textures inside Blender, and if you're working uh, with nodes. This is kind of a one way you can kind of control the material and then the textures without actually you need to use Python to do it. Of course, you can always do it manually. Like for example, this is like a guess what is this? This is like a 9 objects, right? 9 objects, and we have like kind of like a texture for the materials, and they're kind of scrambled. And if I randomize the seed, the texture is gonna be scrambled for each object. This by setting it up this way, you actually have full control over any material that any texture that you want to apply to any material. So you're not like limited to particular material and particular texture, but you kind of have control over which texture data goes into which materials, and you can control all of them using Sverchok. And this is actually not particularly difficult. It's actually rather simple. And the procedure is actually, if I write down with the text, it's actually just like this: get all the materials and then filter it, and then get all the textures and then filter it, and link specific texture into specific material. And then, but you have to make sure each object has a material that's set to a single user. So, and I'm using these emoji pictures because they are fun to use, and if you can use any image actually, and no matter what image, it will actually work. And if you have like a transparency with the image, just like the emoji, it will work even better. So, well, I guess we just jump into it right away. It's not like okay, Blender decided to restart itself, so I'll restart Blender. Normally, in order to do this, you probably need to use some kind of Python scripting, which is not actually, it's not a bad thing, but using nodes, you kind of, if you're still afraid to use Python, using nodes can help you to kind of get used to the concepts, to be able to see the data blocks for material, for texture, and for the objects. Okay, so let's get started. File, save as, material, texture, ID. So that's the topic. If you want to load some image, and I'm working with a Blender render, we have this import images as planes. That's actually super handy. I use it all the time, and for this example, I will be using, maybe I'll use 3 emoji first, and I'll turn on alpha, turn on shaders, and just import them, and hopefully they're transparent and looking nice. Okay, I think they're transparent and looking quite nice. Okay, so we have the 3 emojis here. Look at it from the top. Save it again. I'm gonna save pretty often. So we can quickly switch to compositing and turn on Sverchok Add-On, and I'll show you how to think and deal with images. We know that if you are using Python console, you can do anything basically that's BPY allow you. First of all, we can kind of scan the objects. We know that we have how many objects? We have 1, 2, 3 objects. So 1, 2, 3 objects. There is a so emoji smiley 01, 02, and 03. That's how you kind of list all the objects in the scene, and we have 3 objects. And you can also check the materials. With the material we have 4 because we have the default materials, and then we have emoji smiley 1, smiley 2, smiley 3, and then we also have the texture data, textures, which is emoji smiley 1, smiley 2, smiley 3, and for each material, by default, when we file import images, Blender will automatically set up 1 material per object. So that's actually can be for our advantage. So of course with Python scripting we can kind of link this material or to another texture, but I'll show you. Okay, we have this is the material and this is the textures, and for each material we have this texture slot, and then the material is kind of connected to the texture, so it's all the naming, everything is based on the original image. So that's actually good. So that's first. If you want to observe all this the list of objects, materials, textures inside Sverchok, that's actually pretty easy now because we have the object ID selector, and here we can filter out mesh objects. We can first of all we can get all the objects, and then we can also get all the materials, and we can also get all the textures. Okay, and if you want to list it, you can use the stethoscope. You see that's all the BPY, all the data blocks related to the materials. Exactly the same if you are using Python. Same thing with texture. Okay, and yeah, and then we just need to kind of link. If you want to scramble these 3 objects, each of them, we know that each of them has different materials, like a single user material already. All we need to do if you want to scramble the image is simply just link the textures into this material, and we can actually do that using Sverchok. So let's see, how are we going to do this? First of all, we want to get all the materials with a name emoji. So we don't want to get everything. First, so we can filter it out, and we can use object ID filter here. Just type in the name. Okay, we know that we want the one with the name emoji. So from originally we have 4 materials, it's being filtered, and now we have only 3 objects, 3 materials named emoji. Start with the name emoji. Okay, now we already filtered it out, and the next thing we need to do is simply to change the textures. If I'm not wrong, it's actually pretty simple. Just use this set objects ID set, and then here we pipe in the objects data, and we want to monitor and check the textures. Apparently it's not the texture, I think it's a data.texture if I'm not wrong. Okay, apparently it's still wrong. Maybe it's texture, data.texture. Okay, apparently it's still wrong because maybe it's the texture slot. I need to check this first. I think it's texture slot or textures, one of this name. So I can't keep guessing. Maybe it's a good idea to check one of these. So back to Python console, and I'll check the materials, and then I'll pick one of them, smiley. Okay, I'll pick one of them and then put this guy into a variable, and in the variable we can check the texture slot. There you go, texture slot. So it's actually texture slots with S. Now we don't get any error now, and we know that we are monitoring a props called texture slots. And okay, so we have 3 of them, and we can now change, we can simply assign this texture into this guy. Currently we have emoji. Okay, we need to filter this guy out as well, and then just get the texture with name emoji. Okay, now we already filter it out, and we can use list item level 1, and we can now have access to 3 texture based on their index number 0, 1, and 2. See, 0 is emoji smiley 1 texture. Okay, this is texture data, and then we simply can pipe this guy into this material texture slot with index 0. I think if we pipe it in, it should actually just work. Maybe I need to use the name or something. Let me check. Okay, apparently we need another prop here, and then call it texture, and the value just the texture, and just plug into this guy. Yeah, I think it seems to work. This is the red color, is just an error, I think. Okay, that's actually working. You see, now we are actually controlling the every materials. We are controlling every materials which has name emoji, and then for the props called texture slots index 0, which is this guy, the first texture in the list. And for each texture we just plug in the texture data of index 0, which is this smiley face, and we can change this to texture number 2 and texture number 3, so that's no problem. And if you want to randomize the texture, you can use random number generator, set it to 3 because we have 3 objects, and then set this index between 0 and 2. So as a result, you should see, for example, if I plug this into the item now, we should get 0, 1, 0. That means we're gonna get smiley number 1, smiley number 2, and smiley number 1. And we can randomize the seed, and every time I change the seed, the emoji is changing its value. Sometimes you might get like a jackpot. It's when all the 3 images are the same, but that's probably rare occasions. But this is a pretty interesting already, right? Because you suddenly have control over each one of the value, and everything is numerical. It's pretty cool. What can we do next? Maybe if we want to try to duplicate this guy, it's possible as well. So I'll duplicate this guy and then just place all of this randomly. By duplicating, we actually every duplicate actually follows the materials, so it's using the same material data blocks, so keep that in mind. You might want to make it like a single user objects, but first of all, let's arrange these 9 objects again using object ID selector. This one grab all the objects. Again, we want to filter out the objects with the name emoji. So we have 9 objects. Cool. And then we can use object set, object ID set, plug in the objects there, and then delta locations. We can simply use something like a plane nodes and set it to 3 by 3. So we have 9 points. Plug in the vertices into this guy, and hopefully they work. So we have this weird arrangement now. I'll select all of them and then Alt G and reset the position. Now we have this. It's pretty simple. Okay, currently I think the only thing missing is the data. Like I said, currently we know that we have 3 materials, and then because we are duplicating the objects manually like that, the objects duplicates get the same data blocks. We need to turn it into unique data blocks. So I'll click on this number, click to make a single user copy. So it's gonna be like unique. Kind of doing that manually, but you can use Python script, and there should be like a better way to do this. So I think all of them is like a unique data now. It would be better if we name it properly. So, but in this case it doesn't matter because they are all having the like emoji in the name. Now, because we have 9 objects, we can simply increase the number of data here, size 9, and then just randomize the seed. And now we should actually have control over every materials and the texture. I think we already do. I don't know if okay, maybe I need to update it over here. Okay, now everything is updated. If I randomize the seed, everything should update accordingly. Sometimes you do get like a jackpot. Like here we have like 3 same objects down there, so that's you're pretty lucky. We have 1 in the middle. If we want to bring in 6 more emoji, you can simply import images and just grab emoji number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Use alpha and then shadeless. Okay. So this guy doesn't really matter. I guess you can just delete them. Now we can increase the number of this. And now if we update the data, just scrub on the frame, we should get the new emoji. So we have 9 emojis. Now in order to get like the same row, it's a little bit harder now. But you have a way to scramble all of them. So the texture data itself doesn't matter. What's matter is really the material and which texture get linked into which material. So that's important. We can say that the texture can be used multiple times, but the material, which objects use which material is more important, because you don't want to use the same. You don't want to use the same material for the objects if you want to control each of them individually. So I guess what can be improved is in this case is how you name the objects and how you probably name the materials. If you are doing it, if you are very organized about that, it's gonna be a lot easier if you want to control this this emoji for each object, because in Sverchok it's gonna be very easy. If you have like a 10 by 10 array, you have 100 objects, or maybe increase it more, maybe like 64 by 64 emoji, and then you want to make an artworks 64. what's 64 by 64? 4096. Yeah, I think you don't want to go any higher than that. I think it gets pretty complex. But remember that once you have this set properly, you can actually control anything. Currently, we are just randomizing this array index of the objects. But really, you can use vector noise to control the index, and you can also base it on another image, and then yeah, a lot of things you can do with this simple setup. Okay, I guess that's pretty much it for this live noding. It's basically how you can kind of look into material and texture using object ID node in Sverchok. I guess this is pretty good example. And yeah, if you have any question or any feedbacks, anything you want to know, just let me know in the comments below. Hopefully this is useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.